Hello, all of you from Seek 26, and welcome to the Hormone Genius Podcast. I am Teresa Kenny, and this is my co-host, Jamie Rachi. We are here, and we are excited because this information really is going to change your life. Couple of housekeeping things. We are so excited to partner today with Natural Womanhood, and tomorrow I want you guys to come have lunch with us. Because after today, you're gonna learn why hormones are so cool. As you can see on our t-shirts, hormones are cool and they are important to every part of your life. And we think that this information is life-changing for all of you young women and men. So tomorrow, Sunday, come to the Natural Womanhood booth and we will sit down with you and we'll have a powwow because we're gonna go deeper even into your lives, into your hormones, and really try to help you. That's number one. Number two, I want you to go to our Instagram page and please follow us. We want you to stay connected with the Hormone Genius Podcast because we plan to be doing this for years to come. And we want you, we're in season 6, by the way. So you're gonna have to go back and start listening to season 1 and listen all the way through. Why? Because the foundation of the Hormone Genius Podcast is to empower you to become the genius of your own hormones. And you got to start at the beginning. So I encourage you to go back to season 1 and really listen to our episodes. Today, Jamie and I are going to be talking to you about a lot of things. And so I'm going to pass it off to her because she's going to start with, a conversation about like our natural bodies and why we want to be here at Seek. Why would the Hormone Genius Podcast want to be at Seek 26 and really want to talk about why this information is so important to you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited for you all to listen and for those of our podcast listeners to tune into this episode. But something Teresa that I think is so incredible, and I've thought about it since I was a young adult, just much like these ladies and gentlemen here, is this idea of God's natural law. So we're going to talk about natural law today. Teresa and I, we're going to talk about the cycle, and then we're going to talk about this new cool term called bioevangelism. And it's something we want you all to remember and to be bioevangelists. So we're going to make sure you know how to do that by the end of this episode. Okay, so Teresa, this is why I think God's natural law is awesome. So many of us live in this world and in this life so utterly confused and misguided because life sometimes doesn't seem to make sense. But when we look at the world around us, we realize that God has intention for all that he has made. And that when a wrench is thrown into a natural system, chaos takes place, right? So I like to think about God's natural law in all things. I think to myself, there are cycles and rhythms to life. So there's a cycle and a rhythm to, an agricultural cycle. There's a cycle and a rhythm to like our sleep-wake cycles. There's even like a lunar cycle. There's cycles all around us and there's rhythms all around us. But what happens is if we interrupt those healthy cycles that are natural, part of God's design, God said, let there be an agricultural cycle. Let there be a lunar cycle. Let there be a sleep-wake cycle. He also said, let there be a fertility cycle, right? And so he doesn't want those things to be interrupted. And when they are, chaos takes place. So if there is no water in an agricultural cycle, there are no crops. When there is no sleep, there's no wake. It's everything kind of plays into one another. So I'm excited to talk about today this idea of God's natural law and his intention for the fertility cycle. Because again, when we throw a wrench in a natural cycle, chaos takes place. But before we talk about the chaos that can take place and what wrenches are thrown in natural cycles, let's first begin with the fertility cycle. So many of our listeners here today have gone past our table and they grabbed one of these cards. But if you haven't, we have helpers who will pass these cards around to you. If you don't have one already, raise your hand. If you don't have one, be sure to get one because we are going to be walking through this cycle for you today. So Teresa, how about that?
Yeah, let's do it. So you talked about water, and it just made me think there is water in the fertility cycle.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about the cycle because it's so important for you as a woman to really understand the main event of your cycle. And by the way, the main event of a woman's cycle is not her period.
Right.
And I think, a lot of times we think of the period as, of course, the main event because it's kind of the more uncomfortable part. It's the most obvious part to us. But what we want you to walk away with today is the knowledge that actually the main event of your cycle is in the middle. It probably should be the beginning. And the period is rightly so called the period because it's the end of something, right?
Yep.
So, but the way the menstrual cycle is, of course, described is day one is the period. And that, of course, is the end of the last cycle kind of like failing. The end of the last cycle failing is the fact that that cycle did not end in a conception of a pregnancy.
Right.
And when that happens, all of the hormones that the body had created to get prepared for pregnancy, they literally fall to the bottom. And when they fall to the bottom, that creates a shedding of the lining of the uterus. And that is what the menstrual flow is. And of course, the menstrual flow for most women average is about 3 to 5 days, 3 to 6 days. And it has a crescendo, like the bleeding increases and then it decreases again. And of course, for some people, the period is uncomfortable. And we're going to talk about a little bit more like what are things that you can do to actually help your cycle be improved. In fact, I have a LABA card at our table, and you really need to get the LABA card because it has all sorts of fun tips of how to make your period better. So what happens after the period? Well, the body is basically preparing for this main event. And where does that start, Jamie? Where does the main event start? Because I think it'll surprise.
We're talking about our follicles. Oh no. Okay, I know what you're referencing. In our mother's womb, it starts. We have all the eggs we're ever going to have before we're even born. Is that where you were going with that?
No, but that was a good answer. That was good. That's not what I was thinking of, but that is actually a super good answer. I was actually just thinking of the brain.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Brain, of course.
People do not realize that the main sex organ of the body actually is the brain. And literally, this is true for men too. Your testosterone, your sperm production, all starts in the brain. And so for women, as they finish their period, there's a little hormone that's produced called follicle stimulating hormone. And that literally is to get a follicle growing. What is that follicle supposed to do? It's supposed to be holding your one little egg that was selected to basically be released in that menstrual cycle. And did you know that like over your lifetime, if you have natural cycles for your whole reproductive life, that you'll release about 400 eggs, even though you were born with over 400,000 eggs, So you're born with lots, but you actually don't use that many. And so the body is waiting. It's producing this hormone that's very important at that time. This hormone is called estrogen. And I think everybody's kind of heard of estrogen. Sometimes I feel like estrogen, she gets a bad rap.
She does get a bad rap.
Yeah.
Poor girl. She does a lot for us.
Yes. And she's so important to our brain, to our bones, to our heart, to basically every tissue in our body. And she's so important to creating life. So as this follicle is being produced, basically our hormone estrogen is going to reach a peak. And Jamie, this is where I'm going to bring in our saint from Seek, Saint Pierre Giorgio Frassati, verso alto, right? To the heights. Because, this is what I was thinking about, guys. I'm like, how do I bring this male saint into our Hormone Genius talk? But okay, so estrogen reaches a peak. What did Pier Giorgio Frassati love to do? He loved to climb mountains. He taught us that basically in order to reach Christ, we had to reach the peaks. We had to go to the heights. And so even in our bodies, basically with the hormone estrogen, when it reaches its peak, basically you could say almost like that's the pinnacle moment. The pinnacle moment of creating life. It is when our body is going to release this egg and it has a chance of creating a new life, an eternal life created out of nothing in a sense and sold by God that will live for eternity. How amazing is that? So in everything, even in hormones, we reach the heights. And it's so important to our body to actually have optimal hormones. And this is something that I know a lot of you out there are like, how do I balance my hormones? How do I get things right? Like in everything, in the natural law, the order of things, there is a way to balance your hormones as well. Okay, we have reached the height of the cycle, the main event, as estrogen is at its peak and this egg is released. And after that, basically the body is going into the next phase. That's called the follicular phase. And then the ovulatory phase is where we reach that peak. And from there, Jamie is going to tell us the rest of the story of the cycle.
I want to know. Don't you want to know? But first, I want to give a shout out. So when you choose where to bank, is this perfect? Do Catholic parishes benefit? That might be your question. When you choose Alliance Catholic Credit Union, they do. Do business with a business that cares about the Catholic community. Join the movement at alliancecatholic.com. Okay, one thing I want to say before we move to the next phase is this. Teresa, I heard this once, and I'll never forget it, that once conception takes place, so this main event is meant for, conception, right? The eternal cosmos changes forever because now there is an eternal soul that exists that did not exist before. So you all change the eternal cosmos forever. And I love to think that all the time. We are not here by accident. We are here because God willed it, because he loves us so much. So I love that. Okay, so after we ovulate, that follicle, which is a cyst-like structure, releases the egg and it shrivels up. It becomes a yellow body called the corpus luteum. So now we're approaching the luteal phase. I like to give the luteal phase a bit of a facelift in terms of what I reference it as. I like to call it the progesterone genius phase. And then during the follicular, I like to call it the estrogen genius phase. It helps us remember what hormones should be in the heights. So this progesterone genius phase, there's a dryness, there's an infertility. So we were fertile before, leading up to ovulation. We know this because there are cervical mucus markers, biological markers, and you all know this because on the back of your little postcard quick tip sheet, there's all these little things that we're saying, just as a reminder. But we have dryness. Now we're infertile. And so this phase is between 10 and 14 days, average of 12 days length time. What I think is interesting is that 3 kind of phases are jammed in the first couple weeks, plus or minus a few days, depending on your cycle and depending on your stress. And then one phase, the progesterone genius phase, the luteal phase, is basically half of your entire fertility cycle. And the question is, well, why is that? Well, if the main event was ovulation, we can think, well, the first half of the cycle was preparing for the main event. The second half of the cycle is to prepare for gestation. So progesterone means progestate. So for gestation means pregnancy. So our body every single month, whether conception took place or not, prepares our body as though we will be holding a child. And what's interesting too is even like our breast tissue changes in the luteal phase, our behavior changes. We move more toward like nesting and more toward detail orientation. And again, this is all God's law. Like God knew, okay, ladies, when your estrogen is high, when you're about to ovulate, I need you to be really social. You have more words to say. You can read faces better. You're going to be really super attracted to that hot, sweaty guy moving furniture at Slumberland Furniture Store.
Slumberland Furniture Store, Jamie.
That's actually the name of a furniture store in my town. Isn't that a great name? They're like one of our first supporters.
By the way, Jamie, I just have to tell you, I totally messed this up.
Why?
I totally messed this up.
What do you mean?
Well, I totally forgot to say the most important thing about ovulation. How did I mess that up so bad?
It's because you were so excited.
I was so excited to talk about Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati, which I had practiced saying the word Versta Alto, which I still can't say right.
She did. She practiced this morning in the bathroom.
I did.
I heard her in the shower. I heard her, in the car ride.
That's not true. That's not.
Just joking.
No. Okay, so I totally forgot to say the water part. So you mentioned fertility signs. I mean, again, what we want you to walk away with is an understanding of your cycle and also an understanding of how to track your cycle, because it's so important. I mean, if you can't track your cycle, so when I'm with my patients, by the way, I didn't say this, but I'm a women's health nurse practitioner. So I see patients and have seen patients for 25 years. But a lot of times when I'm sitting with a young patient, I'll be like, hey, do you track your cycle? And then I'll say, hey, do you know when you ovulate? And can you tell me how you know when you ovulate? And so many times, if a woman doesn't know anything about her cycle, she looks at me with kind of like, I have no idea what you just said. So they don't even know what the words are. But a lot of you are more educated. I feel like social media and you guys are starting to hear about hormones and about cycles. So some of you are like, oh yeah, like I track my cycle. But a lot of times it's in these apps where it's basically telling women when they're ovulating, but they're not really understanding what the biological marker of ovulation actually is. Like, unless you pee on your phone cannot tell you when you ovulate. So if you guys are tracking your cycle with an app, that's so great. But also understand it's only your body that can actually tell you when you ovulate. And so that gets to the water part, which I totally forgot to tell you about. So when estrogen is high and you're about to release that egg, just like your body had a red flow with menstruation, your body has a white flow. And that white flow is what we also call cervical fluid or cervical mucus. Nobody likes the word mucus, so a lot of times we say white flow, but it really is a mucousy substance. And actually, it's about 98 to 99% water. And there's a really important reason that God made it so that when we're about to release this egg, that we would have this water of life. That literally, like, you ladies, when you go to the bathroom and you're somewhere in the middle of the cycle, you might be like wiping and you just might be like, oh my gosh, like this is wet, this is slippery, like what's on the tissue? It's a mucousy substance. And I'm telling you, that's totally normal. You've had it since you started your periods, and every girl has that. And it is a sign of health. And ovulation is a sign of health, and it's a sign that your hormones are working properly. And so it's a really important thing. But Jamie, there's a really important reason why we have this water, and it has to do with guys in the room. So guys, fertility, basically, it only makes sense in light of the other sex. Right, Jamie?
Totally. Like, a man is not fertile on his own. A woman is not fertile on our own. Even though there are times of fertility, we're only fertile when the two are paired together. And a man is fertile all the time. If he's a fertile man, he's fertile all the time. But there's only a certain time of the woman's cycle that the couple actually has joint fertility. And that's the fertility window that so many women married trying to achieve pregnancy, or even maybe naturally spacing pregnancy, that's what they're trying hard to understand. And the cool thing, Teresa, about this is so many people don't realize that these natural systems for avoiding pregnancy are very effective when taught properly, not by peeing on a phone, because you'll definitely ruin your phone and it doesn't work, and not by algorithms, but by biological markers. And so there are very trusted and effective methods of avoiding pregnancy. And so that's something I want all women to know. I want women to know they don't have to choose between, oh, I'm going to have a bunch of babies or I'm going to be on birth control. No. You can prayerfully discern with your spouse when a good time to be open to life is. And it's always good to be open to life, but when that timing seems right, so important. And for you, you have many children, and I have a number of children. And something that fertility awareness methods taught me, Teresa, is that life is precious.
Yeah.
So when you are face to face with the fact that you are a fertile woman, your husband is a fertile man, and together you're a joint fertile couple, it forces a conversation that normally wouldn't happen if I just deemed myself infertile by maybe using hormonal contraception of some kind, right? So when a message or a truth is not exposed to you, it's maybe you're shutting down that part, just like we're talking about natural cycles and God's natural law. Like when we throw a wrench in a natural cycle, like birth control, for instance, byproducts occur. We know about the physical byproducts: type 1 carcinogen, according to the World Health Organization, increased risk of breast or blood clots, mood disorders are through the roof, high prescriptions of antidepressants, especially for adolescents. I mean, the chaotic wrench effects are vast. But another wrench effect that I think comes from maybe using that hormonal contraception in a marriage is that those conversations don't take place. And there's something about being exposed to a truth time and time again, a beautiful truth of the dignity of human life that changes and transforms your heart. Yeah. There's something about knowing and learning about how our body operates that changes us, that transforms us. that evangelizes to us. And so it's a very beautiful gift. And it's more, I always think about this, Teresa. I think all of this is more than just physical. It's so much more. Like what we do with our physical body mirrors our thoughts, and it mirrors the fabric of our soul. I'm going to share one story before I punt it off. So I remember I was asked to give a talk at one of the conferences that we spoke at like years ago, okay? And I was making the claim that what we do with our body affects our mind, whether we consciously know it is or not. So there are two groups of people. One group of people were given headphones and a message that just kept saying, college tuition is expensive, okay? College tuition is expensive and it's rising, something like that, okay? So there's group A hearing this in the earbuds, and then group B hearing the same thing. But group A had to walk a mile and go like this. They had to nod their head up and down when listening to it. They just nodded their head, heard the same message, walked the same length of time. Second group, they had to go like this, nod their head back and forth. So up and down, back and forth, these two groups, okay? What do you think happened at the end about their perception of this message? Same message, college tuition's increasing. The group that was going like, yes, they're like, oh, great, good. The colleges probably need more money. Like they were way more okay with it, as opposed to the other group that was going like this. And they're like, that's the worst. And how could they? It's terrible. These people had no idea what these researchers were doing. It literally affected their whole mindset, what they were doing with their body. So same thing's true when we take hormonal contraception. Many of them are on for a health reason, and we have alternatives for you. So stop at our booth tomorrow. But we are making a statement to our body. We are subconsciously making a decision in our mind that tells us life isn't what we want right now. But when we aren't having that, it's different. It's like the nodding up and down and side to side. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, I have never heard that story, Jamie.
Oh,
so
really? Yeah, it just came to me. It was an inspired
thought. And I think we should kind of address in a sense, the elephant in the room is that birth control is prescribed for like every health reason possible. And I know from like 5 weeks ago, we actually did a survey and we found that like 50% of women, even coming to these conferences, had been on birth control for a health reason. So when we talk about birth control, number one, we want to make sure that people know like it is not a judgment upon them, because honestly, like doctors, this is what they offer women for literally painful periods, irregular cycles, PCOS, having no periods, being an athlete, all of these things. And so you're kind of in the situation of like, well, the doctor's the authority. They told me to take this medicine and I believe them. And so we want to share the good news that actually there are many healthcare professionals that know how to treat these conditions, including myself. And I've been practicing for 25 years. I've never prescribed birth control. And frankly, I've never ever been in a situation where I felt that I had to, oh gosh, like in this situation, I'm going to have to use birth control because I don't know what else to do. That has never come up in 25 years. I'm going to tell a story too, because I think this will resonate maybe with some of you young women in the room. I had a young woman come to me in her mid-20s after having an experience of being on birth control for 9 to 10 years. She was put on it when she was around 15 to 16 years of age, and she came to me in her mid-20s. She experienced severe anxiety, and she had this inclination to think that the anxiety wasn't there before she was on birth control, and the anxiety was presenting after being on this medication. And so she went back to her doctor and she said, I really think this medicine is messing with me. I think it's messing with my mental health. I feel anxious all the time. And of course, over and over again, this went on for years, she was told it really can't be your birth control. Oh, well, we'll just switch your birth control to a different birth control. This went on for 9 years. And by the time she got to me, honestly, she was still on birth control. She came in, she had written a 3-page kind of like rant, you could say, about the frustration she had going to doctors over and over again and saying like, I don't feel right. And I really think it may be related to this medicine. And nobody listening to her. And when she came to me, she was shaking, honestly, and she was just so overwhelmed because she had started listening to the Hormone Genius podcast. And what did we say on the podcast? We said, there's research that shows that the increase of anxiety and depression on birth control is profound, really, 60 to 70%. And so we know that birth control can affect mental health, can cause anxiety, can cause changes in mood. And so this woman was like, why was I never told this? I suffered for years. And so she asked me, she's like, do you think I could go off of birth control now? And I was like, absolutely. And it was scary to her. And frankly, I told her, I'm like, I don't even know if you'll feel good if you come off of birth control. Like, I always tell people, like, it may be a bumpy ride. Why? Because it's the first time in your life that you will get to know the real hormonal you. Just think about that. Like, when we're on birth control, which is a synthetic hormone, which isn't our real God-given hormones, like, you aren't your real hormonal you. You're a different version of that. And I think women intuitively know and feel that. And this woman needed permission from me, in a sense, to say, can I just stop this? And so guess what? Good news. Like, she stopped it. 6 months later, she came back to see me, and I was like anxious to hear what she was gonna say. And she said, Teresa, it's the greatest decision I have ever made in my life. For the first time in my life, I don't have crippling anxiety. Guys, she spent 9 years suffering, 9 years being, quote, gaslit, being told that your symptoms really are all in your head and it can't be related to this medicine. These stories from women happen over and over again. More than anything, Jamie and I want you to be empowered to understand your body, your cycle, your hormones. Why? Because you cannot advocate for yourself, for your own body, for your own hormones, for the future of your entire life without understanding the biology of your body, which is why it's so important that you're here today. It's so important that you go further with this information and to understand that you have the power. The doctor doesn't have the power over you. You get to decide what's best for you. And Jamie and I think your natural hormones are good.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's so much tied into knowing thyself, like know thy cycle, know thyself. And it's true, and it's another thing too, is again, the real hormonal you may very well need hormone support, or the very hormonal you really might have a luteal phase deficiency or PCOS or something, but that's just it. We can get to the root cause for these ladies, these birth control pills. We know it just covers the problem. And the moment that birth control as a bandage is removed, that wound, that problem still exists. It doesn't fix the wound. It doesn't heal the wound. The wound is metaphorical in terms of, their hormone problem, their endocrine problem. So that's just it. It's like we take love and care. We want to get to the root. We want to really see that woman, and then hopefully we do see restoration of her hormones so that they reach the right peaks when they're supposed to reach the right peaks. And something else that I think is really amazing, I gave a talk at the University of Northern Iowa, and I gave a lecture basically, and I was talking about with these young women who were health promotion majors and had minors in women health studies and this sort of thing. Okay, so I'm explaining the cycle, basics, nothing crazy. I'm just telling them the truth of how their body works. And at the end, I get a line of women standing to ask me questions. Okay, I was so excited. Nothing made me happier that day. I thought, wow, not only did this information land in BTW, God invented our body, right? He created us. This is what I was sharing was not a new invention. It wasn't a new discovery. It was just the truth. So I always think when we are exposed to truth, we recognize it.
Yes.
We recognize it when we're told.
Yeah.
So many of us are nervous to tell other people about how their body works or about these natural systems. Oh, no, share it. We recognize it. And then we grow because of it. And we'll talk about that in a minute, what it's called, this term. But anyway, I'm speaking and these gals line up. They're excited. And I leave. I'm on cloud 9. Nothing could make me happier. And then a few days later, I get an email from the professor. And the professor said, Jamie, this has never happened before, but all semester long, fall, they have to choose a research topic and research all semester on this one thing, and they're going to present it. And there's less than a month left, like 3 weeks left of the semester. And 8 of the women in my class changed their topic to fertility awareness-based methods, their cycle. Yeah. And they have 3 weeks to jam it all in. And that's when I knew, oh my gosh, like women aren't even making a decision when they're not even being given all their options. They're not saying, no, I don't want to learn. They were never told. And maybe some of you have never been told, and we're telling you now. We're definitely telling you now. So when we understand our cycle, we can be empowered. And when we understand our cycle, and when we share the cycle with others, there's a process, I believe, that takes place within the body that the Lord assigned, in a sense, or that he started because we're made in the image of God. So we call it bioevangelism. So it's our ability, it's the biology of our body's ability to evangelize to us. And this only makes sense because we're made in the image of God. That's why this makes sense. Right. So men and women made in the image of God, does it surprise us that when people learn about their cycle, women learn about their cycle, that they grow closer to the one who made them?
This is so important. You guys, the wisdom of the body, it's kind of like, I've always thought theology of the body is amazing, but this is about integrating the biology of our body into theology of the body. And it really allows you to kind of see the truth of who you are. As we get closer to wrapping up, I want to tell one more story about nuns, because this is because I want everyone out there to know that hormones are for everyone. And right before I came to Seek, I gave a talk to over 40 sisters of the Archdiocese of Lincoln, Nebraska, and I have never had a more enthusiastic crowd. And I had sisters there from young to all the way in their 80s, and I joked there was a sister that was probably in her 80s, and I got to the end of the presentation, and she said, "What do you do if you just hate to exercise? I mean, I just hate to exercise." And I was like, okay, well, we got a problem there. But I was teaching them about just like health and the goodness of their bodies, and even about like cervical mucus and all the things. There's a story, though, that's really profound that happened at Seek, actually, in the last year. We had a sister who happened to be in earshot of our podcast last year. She was at a booth that she was manning, and she came up to us after we gave away 100 books, which, yes, we are giving away 100 books today. So please stick around, because you will get a book if you can stay till the end here, and we're coming close to that. And she wanted to talk to Jamie and I. But basically, what happened was that she had been on birth control all through her young sisterhood, and she had been on it for a medical reason. And then at some point in the late 2000s, she was taken off. And she had what she called a chastity crisis at that point. And she said she had to go through a lot of healing. She went through spiritual direction, and she went through a lot of healing, which she did recover from. But she said for the first time in her life, she finally understood why. And this is because, it'll go to birth control, and another side effect about birth control is that the weird thing is that it prevents pregnancy, right? And a lot of people take it to not get pregnant. But in suppressing the main event of your menstrual cycle, guess what? You also suppress your natural sex drive. In some ways, almost completely. So it's a weird kind of oxymoron that women take birth control to not get pregnant, but they don't want to have sex because they have no sex drive. Because the birth control is basically stunting our natural pheromones, our natural hormones that basically attract us to the opposite sex. And so this woman had never heard that before. This beautiful sister was like, "Thank you for sharing with me that this was actually a part of this medicine that I took for years, and I had no idea that it had suppressed my natural, basically, libido, and it was causing kind of this temptation." And it just was like profound. It made me realize hormones are for everyone. Hormones are for men too. We were going to talk a little bit more about like endocrine system disruptors and how like this toxic world that we're in, you guys, we know this. There's so many toxins that men's like testosterone levels have decreased by over 50% in the last 50 years. Like, there are things that in the natural order, we have really put a wrench into the system. And you guys need to be aware of it. It's not that it's like doomsday and you can't do anything about it, but we can do a lot together to actually like empower ourselves about information to avoid endocrine system disruptors in our water and our products that we put on our body. There's so much that we can do, but if we're not like empowered and educated, we won't know what to do. Right. And so we want you to take away today, basically, again, you can be a bioevangelist. You can help to evangelize the truth of your body. You first have to know and understand it yourself, but you can give that information to others. And I'm telling you, this information really will change your life.
Yeah, it really will. And what I'm excited about too is at the end, of course, you're going to get these books if you're the first 100 in line, but also me and a friend who was interviewed on our podcast twice. His name is David Getterman. His podcast episode was the most shared episode in 2024 or something like that. But we're going to teach a class. It's called Where Biology and Relationships Meet. Because when we think about fertility awareness, we think about family planning, don't we? When we think about fertility awareness, we think about the body. But when we think about fertility awareness, do we think about relationships? Maybe in the way of family planning, but what about beyond that? So if you're in an engaged relationship, you're married, you have a boyfriend, you want to be married someday, we are also offering a free webinar January 11th at 6 p.m. Central. And we have information for you all after the show. So make sure that you get that information from me because we would love to do that. But Teresa, this has been a great episode. And something else about that, where biology and relationships meet, we really start digging into pheromones and the way we are attracted to one another, the way God ordered natural attraction. So again, if that's something that you're wanting to learn, then please make sure that you check it out. But we talked about natural law. The Lord has an intention for everything he made, and it is not an accident. There's reason deeper than we even know or realize or can explain. We talked about the cycle, and then we talked about ways that you can be a bioevangelist by first, like Teresa said, knowing thyself, knowing thy cycle, growing and letting the body evangelize to you, but then also taking some of these extra cards that we'll have at our table and even now to give to your friends. Be an evangelist, be a bioevangelist. Make sure you share this with others.
Also, just make sure Natural Womanhood, again, that we are at their booth. So please come and learn about Natural Womanhood too. They have these awesome college groups called Cycle Mindfulness Clubs. And there's already 28 across the country, but we want that to grow and expound across the entire United States. So please come and learn about Natural Womanhood. They also are mission aligned in helping to provide cycle awareness, body literacy, how to help you kind of like flow with your cycle, information about the negative harms of birth control. So please learn about Natural Womanhood too. Please come tomorrow, Sunday, and have lunch with us. Again, if you have more questions, if you're like, this is just getting your palate wet and you're like, okay, I want to go deeper, Jamie and I would love to talk to you. So come tomorrow, lunchtime, and we will sit and powwow with you. Our friendly hormone crew today is going to be throwing out these cool shirts. We made these last year for Seek 25 because St. Joan of Arc was the patron saint. And what do they say, Jamie?
It says slaying hormones. Nope. Slaying dragons, balancing hormones.
Yeah. So Jamie did an awesome job putting this shirt together. So you guys are going to get these. And again, you're going to stay with us afterwards. I would love to sign a book for you. We have 100 to give away and we're excited. It's called The Happy Girl's Guide to Being Whole. It is basically an encyclopedia to your body. Am I forgetting anything else, Jamie, we want to leave people with?
Yes. So our hormone crew is going to throw these shirts out, but don't get injured. And then behind this white wall, you see how the stairs go up? You're going to go up the stairs, down the stairs, and that's where you're going to meet us for the books. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the Hormone Genius Podcast. As always, Teresa, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes.